G'day YouTubers, Spannerman again here with another video. Today we're going to have a review on depth gauges, which ones work better. So if we have a quick bit of a look, you can see that I've got quite a collection of depth gauges, kits and everything else. And mind you, this isn't the whole collection, but it's almost. Okay, what you just saw then was quite a lot of kits and depth gauges. They all check the raker or the depth gauge, but a lot of them can't actually perform the correct work of filing down a raker. So what do I mean by that? Have a look at this gauge here. This is from Stihl. It's got a hard and soft setting. It's called a progressive raker gauge. Can you see all those file marks on that? This gauge is sold by Stihl, and it comes in a packet like this, and you'll see it's got 62 HRC. That's rock-wool hardness. And what that actually means is that you can run a file over it, because a file's only about 60 rock-wool hardness. So when you actually do your rakers, you can run the file over that as much as you want. You won't file it away, you'll just scratch it. As you will with this type of depth gauge, also from Stihl. Very, it's hardened, so runs over the top. Husqvarna, this is a Husky one, the same thing, hardened steel, run it over. Another Husqvarna one here. Okay. Now this particular one, made in China, absolute garbage, mild steel. Yes, you can actually use it to check your depth gauge. The moment you check your chain and put it over the top and file, you'll start filing this gauge away. So for those that are not too familiar with filing your depth gauges, we'll give you a quick demonstration on this particular gauge. This particular gauge is from Stihl. And the whole idea of using this gauge is that you sit it on top and you run the file over the top. Very quick, very fast. On to the next one. Been using this gauge for months and months and months. If it does me a couple of years, it's only about $11, then I'm in front. Okay, so as you can see, works quite good. This particular one is the same. You can file that, and as you can see, it'll just scratch the surface. And as well as the Husqvarna one as well. And what we've got here is two kits. And this kit are both made in China. While yes, they can check your depth gauges, you can't put them on top and file over the top. You'll file the actual gauge away. So they're garbage. Now, I'm going to really surprise you. Today I went out and brought a Oregon depth gauge and a file. And I put it on here like so. And to my amazement, and we'll see if we can get a shot of this, all as it did was file the plate away. I'm really disappointed in this from Oregon. So to me, this is garbage. Very disappointed, because I've got Oregon grinders and high quality. The cost of this was 29 Australian dollars. The cost of this from Stihl is about $8 or $9. Files are only about, that's about $7 or $8. So it makes this gauge very expensive when it's absolute garbage, and it's probably made in China out of mild steel. Yes, it's capable of checking your depth gauge or rakers, but you certainly can't put a file on it, because if you do, you'll do exactly what I did. Now, I've put the file over that about 3 or 4 times. The camera probably doesn't pick it up. It's got all scratches in there. I'm filing the plate away. That's how bad it is. because you can feel the file. You can always tell how hard a metal is or how good it is, because the file will just start taking file. It'll just start filing it away. So the ones at the back, as you can see, if we zoom in there, there's 4 different Husqvarna ones in packets that I've got there. They're okay, and still have 5 in the range. You can see 1, 2, 3, FL1 to FL5. So it starts off for 1/4 inch Pico, 3/8 low profile, 0.325, 3/8 standard, and 404. And in the Husqvarna range, because they've got their new X cut, they've got about 8 different file combination gauges out there. This is probably one of the first ones that they ever brought out. Very, very popular. Another company called Philo Plate. This is another one. This one's not as hard a metal as steel, I believe, because I put some very deep scratches in some of those. These particular units from Still, and again, I've got one for every size. That comes with a file that's used for the depth gauges. It comes with a depth gauge that's suitable for the chain, and it comes with a file holder for those people that can't hold a file at 30 degrees or hold a file in the right spot. So there's 5 of those. They're available from Still. Yes, I'm a chainsaw fanatic and I collect a lot of things and use a lot of things. So if I tell you that it works, you can probably pretty much guarantee it works. So I give it a pretty good rigorous test. But I am very, very disappointed in Oregon. Really disappointed in this one. Joseph Cox would turn in his grave if he knows what's happened to his company now. Oregon is no longer the company, I believe, that used to be. It's been sold, could be once or twice. This gauge is only good for checking your depth gauges, so it would be a matter of sitting it on top and just pushing the file, taking the gauge off, run the file over, putting the gauge back. Because if you use it like the Still gauge and file over the top, all you're going to do is what you can see there, you're going to file the gauge away. So I'm really disappointed, because I honestly thought that Oregon made a much better product than that. No point me complaining to Oregon. I'll probably just say you can have your money back, and that's about it. Look, I hope this review helps you. The only other thing before I'll close, making depth gauges is not scientific. I've made my own up. I got 5 in there. These are very similar to the Still. So when it comes to depth gauges, I know what I'm doing. Anyway, as I said, I'm very, very disappointed in that one, because I just thought I'd like to try it. I had so much respect for Oregon as a company that only made some of the best products available on the market. And sadly, as I said, it's fallen into different hands at the moment. So like a lot of companies that happens to, great companies that fall into the hands of other people, try and make it cheaper and make the quality cheaper. So I'll never be buying Oregon depth gauges. I'll be very, very careful of anything that comes out of Oregon from now on, which is really sad. Still, on the other hand, as a lot of people would know, Still is a great company. I have never known Still to make anything that's bad, even though some people may say otherwise, same as Husqvarna. I've got nothing against Husqvarna, great chainsaw. Back in the day, you had McCulloch. There was quite a number of chainsaw companies out there that made chainsaws, and they were great saws. But yeah, a lot of these companies have since sort of gone. But as I say, if you buy one of these cheap ones from the hardware store, they're not professional by any stretch of the imagination. They may be accurate, but as I say, the metal on them is soft. You'll file the metal gauge away in no time. Even this particular one, sure, look, if you work in a shop and you were using that day in, day out, maybe after a couple of months you'd have to replace it. But for the price of what it costs, you're still getting good value. If you were using this in the shop, probably, and I was doing a lot of chains, probably in 2 weeks or something, I'd have to get another one. I'd be fine. The other thing is that if you're filing this and you file the thickness down, then you've got the wrong depth on your depth gauges or rakers. So that's another reason why these should always be made out of at least a Rockwool hardness of 62 like the Stihl. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say on depth gauges. I hope that I'll help somebody out there. Please avoid buying this type of gauge in the future unless you only want it to check. You cannot place a file on it, because if you do, you're going to wear the gauge away in no time. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.